Welcome. We have Bill Kaufmann. Last time we saw you, you were on Community Corner. Today, you're on Election 2023. You're a newly registered candidate in Leduc for the Solidarity Movement of Alberta. Welcome.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
Very good.
Now this is, there's lots to talk about. I'm going to let you talk a little bit about your candidacy. Just tell us full name, where you're running, what party you're with, and as much as you want to say, and then I got a ton of questions.
Okay, my name is Bill Kaufmann, and I'm the nominee of the Solidarity Movement of Alberta in the Leduc Beaumont constituency. That's where I will be running, and I'm getting ready for the candidates forums that are taking place next week in Beaumont, Leduc. And I'm just getting started. Unfortunately, we registered quite late. That was something that we were not. The party, Artur Pawlowski, made the decision to register a little bit on the late side, but he had no choice. He was planning to run for the Independence Party before he was ousted, so he needed to do this, and that's all the time we have, 3 weeks.
Now, there's a lot to say. Okay, you're part of the Solidarity Movement of Alberta. Okay, there's a lot to say about that. There's a lot to say why the party exists. But let's start with Danielle Smith.
Okay.
Do you think that Danielle Smith used and abused the freedom movement, and it's just a matter of time before she'll turn her back on what she's saying?
Ooh, in practice, yes. The answer is a resounding yes. Whether she intended it or not, whether she knew she was using the freedom movement when she campaigned, I cannot say for sure. But she used the freedom movement completely. She made promises like banning vaccine mandates in Alberta and discrimination against the unvaccinated. Right now, myself that did not take the vaccine cannot work in many workplaces like the city of Edmonton. I cannot work for the city of Edmonton today. And she has backtracked on pretty much every promise. The only reason I'm not 100% sure if she intentionally did this is because maybe she did not know she would have to cave in to the establishment. I mean, but the moment she appointed the same cabinet ministers that Kenny had, we knew that she was not going to deliver. Like even a week ago, as an example, she basically said she's not campaigning at all on 3 of the promises that got her elected. So in addition of backtracking on protecting the unvaccinated from discrimination, she's now saying that she's not going to campaign on the Sovereignty Act. So in a way, Travis Tace was correct. He warned every UCP member that Danielle is doing this to get the votes, but that Alberta Sovereignty Act would be passed and would be shelved and never used. That's exactly what happened. That's why she's not campaigning on it, because it's irrelevant. Secondly, she says she's not campaigning on an Alberta pension plan. She's not campaigning on an Alberta police force. She said that in an interview. So she completely used the freedom movement, and I am surprised the freedom movement is still supporting somebody that does not have the authority or the support within the party to implement any of the freedom policies she promised. That's why I'm running, because Danielle Smith is not for freedom. She may talk, she may even think in a freedom way, but she doesn't have the power or anything. She's a puppet of the same people Kenny was a puppet of. Like, I mean, and she's controlled by special interests and the party apparatus, and if she doesn't toe the line, she loses the support from caucus and they cut her from office.
So it's starting to look that the Take Back Alberta is almost like a secret state, a secret extreme state that's behind Danielle Smith, and it appears that the UCP is distancing themselves from them. What about you guys? Are you distancing yourself from Take Back Alberta, or you think they're viable and effective?
No, I don't believe Take Back Alberta is viable and effective. David Parker has a history of failure. Like, he supported Jason Kenney, And then he decided he was not good and had to take him down. He supported Erin O'Toole, and he said he was also disillusioned. Now he supported Danielle Smith. I mean, and the reasons are wrong as well. The Take Back Alberta, the goals of Take Back Alberta, I believe they are deceiving the freedom movement. Their goals is to take over the board of the party, and they actually got, in the elections last year at the AGM, every board member that was up for election ended up being a Take Back Alberta nominee. Now, David Parker believes, because he's told me that if the leader doesn't do something right, if Danielle doesn't do what he wants her to do, he would cut her membership from the party, and that's how he's planning to get rid of a leader that's not loyal to him. That's completely misleading, mistaken, because there should be a leadership review and everything. So I don't agree with the methods of Take Back Alberta at all.
So, on the federal level, hold on.
Yes,
go ahead.
I wanted to say that there's something else about Take Back Alberta. They are not pro-freedom either. They talk, and they are using the freedom movement as well. David Parker, when it came down to the banning critical race theory teaching in schools, that came back at the came into the AGM for voting, and David Parker said no, and he voted against it, even though a constituency had totally approved that. So I have lots of friends in Take Back Alberta, and I hope if they see this, they are not going to be disappointed. But I have to state the truth. That movement is very confused. It's also very manipulative. I mean, they want us to infiltrate the party and pretend we are like the establishment, but not even be openly pro-freedom. I really don't know what they're trying to do there.
See, it is deception. And
It's deception.
I want to draw this comparison, but also it's more than a comparison. The Chinese are heavily involved in messing around in federal politics with money and strong arming. Do you think that Take Back Alberta is the U.S. response to that, and that Take Back Alberta is foreign funded?
No, I would not go that far at all. But
okay.
But I do think that there's something wrong with that movement. I already explained, and the fact that just recently they asked Danielle why did she attend David Parker's wedding and say, well, we're friends. I mean, there's something cooking there that just doesn't look good. Even people that are pro-freedom like myself, we just cannot approve of this movement.
You don't think that's CIA money running them?
No.
Okay. So now, what's the difference between the Solidarity platform and the Wild Rose platform and the UCP platform? What's the difference?
Well, I would say that the Solidarity and the Wild Rose are very similar. Okay, I have to admit that. I went to the Wild Rose Coalition's website recently, and it was very similar. I think the difference is that the Wild Rose Coalition does not speak about, for example, the corruption in our justice system and the political prisoners. There's people have been in jail right now from the Quds blockade without trial for, well, it's since February last year. So basically, we're talking here about 14 months or 16 months right now. It's going to be going into, and these people deserve justice. We're letting out hardcore criminals with no bail, while people like this are being denied bail. The disclosures, the lawyers are saying they're not even receiving disclosures. So we've got political prisoners in Alberta right now, and it's not just the 4 people that were charged with some weapons charges. We're talking here about the leaders. There were 3 leaders of the Quds blockade. They got charged. Those ones are not in jail, but they got charged last September or October as well with mischief and all sorts of other criminal offenses that. So I don't believe any party other than the Solidarity movement speaks about it. The same thing about the arrest of pastors and everything. Derek Reimer was just freed recently, 3 times in jail for protesting a drag queen show. I mean, this is excessive. There's censorship and it infringes on the right to protest. So I think he was 160 meters away from or 200 meters from a drag show, and the last arrest was like that. So anyways, he's awaiting trial now. So with regard to the UCP, or radical differences, like, I mean, between the UCP and the Solidarity Movement and even the Walrus Coalition, I would say is that we would stand up to Trudeau, okay? And we will not call a referendum right away. That's not the, if we can negotiate, but we know that we need to renegotiate the relationship between Alberta and Ottawa. The UCP does not think that way. And climate change. The UCP believes by 2050 we have to be net zero. The NDP by 2035. Both parties, although the NDP started it, both parties actually shut down all our coal-fired power generation plants that generate electricity. I mean, 50% of electricity just a few years back, around 2016 or 2017, slightly over 50% was being generated by coal. This year, Danielle Smith is shutting down the last 3 coal-fired electricity generating plants. So that's going to cause a further increase in our electricity bills that are through the roof right now. So on the climate change, we are very clear. CO2 is not the problem. Government tyranny is the problem. The CO2, the plants need CO2, the atmosphere needs CO2, and from ladies I heard 0.4% or 0.3% of the atmosphere is CO2. Where this is being used for a political agenda to shut down our energy, shut down agriculture, and it's going to cause tremendous problems. And what they're trying to replace these fossil fuels with, in some cases, doesn't even work. I mean, we're all going to be, and the people that suffer the most are the poor. Like, I mean, there are people that are barely getting by day to day. Those people will not be able to afford their rent because they will have to heat their home or buy food or not afford their mortgages. So we're hitting the poorest members in society. I mean, this is with absolutely no science behind it. And so that's a huge difference. So we would tell Trudeau directly that, because even they asked Brian Jean, would you allow coal to be used to produce electricity? And Brian Jean said, even though he criticizes not, he said, no, we're not going backwards, we're moving forward. We need to help the federal government to meet the Paris Accord agreement. Well, Alberta would tell Trudeau very clearly that we're out of this Paris Accord, and if that causes a referendum or a renegotiation of our relationship with Ottawa, we will do that. But so that's a fundamental difference between the two parties. Then on education, I'm hearing, and I'm talking like to high school students, some of them, or a guy, I just talked yesterday to a high school student, like door knocking, that was just out of high school. He's just finishing right now. So this person tells me, I said, is it true what I'm hearing about all these wokeism in schools and everything? Oh, he told me yes. And it is what's going on there. We would basically reform education. The UCP will do nothing about this, but we will reform it so that students learn the basics: math, science, physics, chemistry, and history, geography. But we're not going to indoctrinate kids on multi-gender ideology that when they are 5-6 years old. And this is not, I'm not saying that because I'm trying to politicize anything. I'm trying to depoliticize the school system, and not just depoliticize, but this is having severe mental health consequences. I mean, we've got 8-year-old, 9-year-old girls wondering whether they are girls or boys or what sexual orientation they have. We never had these problems before. This must be addressed. And then I applaud Maxime Bernier yesterday. I mean, he's launching he's going to ride federally in Manitoba, but he clearly spoke about that nobody's talking about the implication of this gender ideology in kids, and he gave the example of kids going through puberty blockers, and you have 12-year-old girls who are performing mastectomies on 12-year-old girls, and there are boys that are pretty much being given drugs that are the equivalent of chemical castration. This is an abuse of our youth. This is not something that I'm prepared to just watch by and do while this goes on. I mean, if our children are suffering as a result of this and their bodies are being altered in a permanent way and damaged, this is, and the pharmaceutical industry making a profit, like taking all this to the bank, because once you go through these treatments, you have to pay for drugs maybe $3,000-$4,000 a year to just keep that process going. This is something that has to be addressed. The UCP is totally silent. Other parties are completely silent. Pastor Art, as a Christian, knows that this is an injustice, and we are going to have zero patience for this. Somebody has to protect the children. So that's on the education side. And also, Alberta had the best education, basically, curriculum in the past. We were some of the best as far as performance internationally and everything, in competitions and everything. Right now, this is a shame. Like, I mean, instead of focusing on the basics, we're having these problems. It goes so far as I heard about a boy, okay, and again, this is somebody that works in a school, that I think 16 years old or so, he was denied access to a chemistry class. And because they had a quota, they wanted so many girls. I mean, they had to have at least 50% of girls, or whatever percentage it was. So basically, they said, no, we cannot have a boy here unless we get more girls. I had no idea this was going on. And so this boy, in order to get into the class, had to identify as a girl. So he said he was a girl, he identified as a girl, and they let him in take the chemistry course. This stuff, nobody in the UCP or NDP is speaking about. Paul Hinman has not spoken about it, but I talked to somebody that supports him, and he said he would be on the same side. So the difference is, our party will speak about it. I'm going to bring it up at the debate the next time and see what they tell me. But the Walrus Coalition believes in it, but they are not speaking about it. The UCP is totally silent. And I talked to Nathan Cooper. I met him. It was about 3 weeks ago. He's the Speaker of the Legislative Assembly. At that time, I was knocking on doors for the UCP, and he happened to be there. And before I knew I was going to be running, and I brought this up to him, to his attention, and he told me, Bill, we already have the anti-woke vote. We don't care about you because we already know you're going to vote for us. Well, they are taking us for granted, and that's why I'm running. I mean, this is just not acceptable. The UCP and NDP are just way too similar. Then let's move to healthcare. I cover education quite a bit. Because there are very big substantive differences between the parties. When it comes to healthcare, I mean, Alberta now has a record budget. We just increased the amount of money spent to 24.5 billion. It's close to 25 billion. That works to, if you divide it by the entire Alberta population of 4.3 million, I think it's about $5,600 per capita, okay? It's not per household. Per household is much higher. It's like 15,600 because there's about 1.6 households in Alberta. But per capita is 5,600. The average for Canada is about 4,100 or so. So we're already spending way more than anybody else in Canada, and we're getting results that are unacceptable. If you live in Leduc or Edmonton or in this area, you cannot find a family doctor, pretty much. And if you are lucky that you have one, and let's say you don't like that doctor, good luck firing the doctor and finding another one. You just can't. You are stuck because there's no other doctor. This is much worse than Argentina, where I was born, which is a third world country. Maybe today they are in the same situation, I don't know. But when I was raised there, if my mom or my dad did not like the doctor, sure as hell they would go and find another one. Here, you cannot even find a first doctor, let alone find a second one. You want a second opinion, you might not be able to get a first opinion. This performance of the healthcare system is unacceptable, and the dollars we're spending on it is incredible. So, what changes would I propose? Well, at this point, we gotta think outside the box. You cannot throw good money after bad. Like, increasing the budget is not gonna solve anything. And so I did a little bit of research, and what I have observed, for example, is nurses. I had just as an example, I fell at that swimming pool, and I had a cut that was bleeding quite intensively on my wrist last year. So the lifeguards told me to go to the emergency. Now, after 2.5 hours, I walked out. No stitches, nothing, because the way was just unbelievable. Well, I should say something here. It's not after 2.5 hours. It was after about an hour, but I was told the wait was going to be 2.5 hours. There were only 5 people in the emergency, and the doctor said, what I was told by the nurses, the doctor was seeing one person every half an hour to an hour because he had to do other rounds and was doing other things. Now I said, do I really need a doctor for putting stitches? And then they said, well, this is the process in Canada. Later on, I talked to a nurse that was from the Philippines. She said in the Philippines, nurses would do stitches. And here, we're not allowed to do anything. Well, why do I need a doctor that needs, I don't know how many years of training to do that? There's also, just recently, it came up that there's a somebody in the UCP was saying, well, if people were not to go to a doctor so much, maybe if they paid, they would not go as much. We do have a little bit of abuse. I mean, when you give something for free, let's say if you were to give food completely for free, people would go grab it and then waste it, and if it's get a little bit old, next day get more food from the supermarket. So we're having a little bit of a problem with people abusing the healthcare system, and it's probably a minority, but somebody may just have a cold or a little bit of a headache and things like that. So this also needs to be handled by nurses, not doctors, and maybe they need to be assertive. If somebody calls with something that is really, really minor, the doctor or the nurse or the hospital may have to say, no, this is not something that a hospital would see. Somehow we cannot just have unlimited demand. Healthcare, my party would say, will always be free for every Albertan, everybody. But we have to take a look at some of those things. And right now the doctors, we have a shortage of doctors because they are really not properly utilize their resources. I mean, lots of work that nurses should do are being done by doctors, and that's the one thing. Now, a second thing I've noticed is that we complain we have too few doctors. Now, there are quotas in every province on how many doctors can go through medical school. So really, the only one to blame, for a government to blame that there are too little doctors, I mean, they have only themselves to blame, because the government is limiting the number of doctors the education system can produce. And because they are scared, it's so expensive to educate them, it's so expensive to pay them afterwards and everything, and nobody's talking about it because they realize that it is their fault, and they don't want to tell people we don't have the money. So how do you solve this? The way to address this issue is we got to look at other countries, okay? And I looked, for example, at England, or I looked at pretty much every other country in Europe. It takes, to become a doctor, if an 18-year-old out of high school wants to become a doctor, by 22 years old, in 4 years, he's a doctor. So there's medicine is an undergraduate program. In Canada, it's not. In the US, it's not. So the North American system has a problem in that to educate a doctor takes way too many years. In England, it's 4 years, and you do another year of practicum, and you start earning income, being able to pay back your student loans and everything. So you don't need as much compensation. You don't graduate with so high student loans that then your wages have to be way higher. So it becomes way more expensive to educate a doctor here in Canada. It's got lots of consequences. I mean, we're losing years and years of a productive doctor. So I want to do the same thing. Like within 4 years of finishing high school, you are a doctor, another year of practicum and supervision, and you are just a fully practicing doctor. Now, for specialists, of course, if you're going to be a heart surgeon, that would be postgraduate. So you would have to do probably another 4 years. So it would take 4 plus 4, about 8, under the model we are proposing, which is the European model. And not just European, in the country, in South America is the same way, and I haven't looked into Japan, but I bet it's the same thing. So that would be a way of addressing this. Now in Canada, let's look at the Canadian model. It takes 8 years to become a doctor. So it's 4 years of undergraduate, 4 years of graduate, then 2 years of practicum or work experience approximately, and then you are a family doctor. So we're looking at 10 years to educate a family doctor versus 5 that I would propose. And then for a specialist, you probably have another, it is another 4 years or so. So it's about 14 years to graduate, let's say, a heart surgeon. Well, we can do that one in about 8 years instead. So basically, that we need reform of the education system. And I would challenge anybody. If they disagree with me, I would say, that's okay. If you want to continue the current model, you tell me, but don't keep restricting the access to medicine schools and then complaining we have no doctors. So that's the healthcare. So I cover healthcare, education. I cover a little bit the environment by saying that, maybe I should go a little bit back to the environment. I mentioned that the focus is completely wrong. We're increasing cost of everything, focusing on the CO2 emissions, and doing a lot of things wrong. Like, for example, electric cars. Very few people realize that that an electric car that both Smith and Notley are focusing on, maybe by different years, but they basically want to get rid of all gas fuel and diesel fuel vehicles in Alberta at some point in time. I think by 2035, Trudeau wants that. Well, I'm going to just focus right now, first of all, on the environmental impact of these electric cars. We're lying to the population by telling them buy an electric car, because it's so green that everything's good for the environment. The fact of the matter is, to give you an example, a Ford F-150, the battery, that pickup truck, the electric model weighs 50% more than the non-electric model. The gas fuel is if you buy a diesel fuel Ford F-150, it weighs about 4,100 pounds, 4,200 pounds, and you are looking at about 6,000 pounds for an electric one. The battery alone weighs a whopping 1,800 pounds. That is unbelievable, and the minerals that are so it makes it way more inefficient to move. You need more energy to carry that vehicle. Tires wear out faster, and that battery needs replacement as well. After 5 years, it's about 80% capacity. So it doesn't work very well in cold weather. So the technology is just not there, and the mining of it. They are using child labor in Congo to get the cobalt. Most of the cobalt comes from Africa. And the lithium, they shut down several mines already in Europe, in India, in other places, because the pollution is incredible. So mining these minerals to produce the electric batteries is not less environmentally damaged than mining coal, okay? It's just a narrative to make people feel good. Let alone there's not enough of this lithium in the world to even replace the entire fleet. And so this entire agenda is just based. The entire green agenda is not green at all. And so our party would do this. We believe that we don't want to be the technology experts like this guy. I'm not going to go and say, hey, this fuel is better than this other fuel. This is the way the car should be. That is wrong. Every time the government says something, it usually gets it wrong. So the market forces, like consumers and producers, would decide at what time it's more effective, more efficient to move into electric vehicles. At some point it would be, but we're not there yet. I'm hearing in 10 years, the batteries will not require any lithium. So maybe in 10 years we might be ready to get started. But right now, trying to push technologies we're not ready for is not good. And one other thing, we look at the cost of this, okay? The cost of an F-150 has now doubled compared to with electric vehicle versus the one that was gas fuel or diesel fuel. So nobody's going to be able to drive in Alberta very soon if we're going to force everybody to drive electric. And they won't be able to buy insurance either, because any scratch to the vehicle, if you get rear-ended, the battery gets scratched. Little scratch on a battery, the battery cannot be fixed. Elon Musk was asked, and he said the Tesla battery cannot be fixed. You cannot open it and just fix it. And the cost replacement is unreal. For an F-150, $35,000 US dollars, $36,000 US dollars for the battery alone, which is close to 50,000 Canadians. This science is completely fake science. This is not environmental. I'm all for the environment. I have one of the lowest carbon footprints of any Albertan. I drive a little Chevy Spark, and I drive it only when I come to Edmonton. Like today, I bicycle every day. Somebody saw me and he said, Bill, you cannot be for the Solidarity Movement of Alberta. You look like an environmentalist. So I'm all for the environment, just not the destruction of the environment that the NDP and UCP are going to cause us, plus raising our standard of living, having no cars, and this is just not good. So
what is the path to victory for you in Leduc? How are you going to win this election?
Well, so you are clear on the difference between the parties. What you just heard, you never would hear from these other guys. They are totally politically correct, and they don't even touch these issues.
Beautiful. It was a beautiful,
So,
beautiful description. How are you going to win?
well,
In Leduc, you.
well, the party was formed only a week ago on the Friday, so a week and 1 day, and I started collecting even my signatures to be nominated only a week ago on Saturday. So I finished all my nomination papers on Monday, so I filed them as early as I could, appointed the agent and everything, and Tuesday I got confirmation, and I was allowed to start campaigning. So far, I've concentrated on because the time is very limited, so on contacting.
Okay, what's your path to victory? How are you going to win?
Well, there's very little time. I mean, the party was just registered, so, and myself as well. But I have contacted the local media, so I already have done an interview in the local newspaper. So there will be an article, a profile with pictures and a picture and answers to questions and where my policies stand in the Leduc Rep, Beaumont News, and also a website that used to be a newspaper, but now it's only a website that reaches the rural population of Leduc County. The second area I've been focused on was the candidates forums. And right now I'm booked for 3 candidates forums. One it's going to be a luncheon in Leduc next Wednesday, then in Beaumont on Tuesday, organized by the Beaumont Chamber of Commerce. Anybody that wants to attend, they can contact the Chamber of Commerce in Beaumont or Leduc, and they will provide all the details. Then on Thursday, I'm doing another candidates forum in Beaumont, organized by the 50 plus group. The mayor of Beaumont is organizing in his private capacity. It's just the group is organizing it, but the mayor of Beaumont is one of the members, so he's very interested in policy, so in politics. So he organized this together with that group. So I'm looking forward to be there as well. And there's a freedom event on Telford Lake at noon on the 20th. I invite everybody to go there. It's I'll be there, and it's going to be like a meet the candidate event. We're going to try to invite other candidates as well. It's not just for myself. It's just people that really believe in freedom, and that our freedoms are being threatened right now by government. And as for which voters I'm targeting, I'm targeting everybody. Some people think our party would only be able to attract UCP voters. Nothing is further from the truth. Like the NDP and the NDP Liberal Coalition of Jack Mitzin and Justin Trudeau, the richer have gone richer, and the poor have gone poorer. There's a lot of corporate welfare. Rachel Notley is not for the workers. She wanted to buy rail cars for the oil industry. So I'm going to track the working class that still votes NDP. I'm going to track the teachers, all those teachers that are, I hate to use the word disgusted, but I talked to some, and that's what's going on. They are disgusted by the Maoist indoctrination system that's going on in the schools that I covered before when I addressed education. The healthcare workers, the nurses that would like to be able to do more and everything. So I'm going to be targeting NDP voters, and also I'm going to be targeting those that stay at home, because there's many people that are not showing up at the polls. There's a complete disinterest because they are so frustrated with the incompetence and the hypocrisy of these 2 political parties, that all it is, they're trying to elect people that are going to be running the political machinery and get benefits. The lobbies and the interest groups get their benefits, and this seems to be something that they don't have the people's best interest, and a lot of people are so frustrated that they're staying home.
Okay, so how many candidates are running for Solidarity?
They were registered 48 or 49, and 38 or 39 of those ones have already been nominated, complete all the papers, and are on the ballot, and they will be running.
So even if every Solidarity candidate's elected, you don't have enough to form government. So we have to talk about minority government.
Yes.
Would you personally support, you know, a minority's position holding the balance of power? The Solidarity Movement holds the balance of power. Would you support a NDP government?
The answer is
in minority.
I would sit down with both Danielle Smith and Rachel Notley, but I will be, or we, however members have been elected from our party, and lay down the law. What we would expect some change. I mean, we would never support like Rachel Notley's current agenda. I mean, of a
minority is different, but you would talk to her.
I would talk to her, and I would talk to Danielle Smith. I mean, if Rachel Notley offers to eliminate the carbon tax, while Danielle wants it to go on a little bit, wants to lower it or whatever it is, I would go for Notley. Whoever is the most pro-freedom. I expect Danielle to be more pro-freedom than Rachel, but I'm going to go with an open mind.
Awesome. See you at the candidate forums. This is exciting. Thanks for coming in today.
Excellent.